The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with my guest co-host this week, as we have for the last couple of shows, Dan Rylance. And we're continuing with our interviewing of the candidates during this show. We're very pleased to be joined this evening by Mark Nielsen, and in the second half, Kent Monte will be here. They'll both be discussing their candidacy and why they should be elected to the Oshkosh Common Council. There are 3 seats available on the council as far as actual council members. 2 are being sought by incumbents, Meredith Shireman and Brian Bain. The other is a seat being vacated by Shirley Maddox, who is not seeking re-election. So Mark is hoping that he will be able to fill one of those 3 seats anyway. So welcome to the show and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Dan.
We appreciate it very much. And, you know, because of scheduling and taping dates and so forth, this show, unfortunately, will only be able to air one time before the primary. So if you're watching this on Monday, please go to the polls tomorrow and vote for the candidates of your choice. But if Mark wins in the primary, we'll be sure and get him on one of the first interviews next time so we don't have this kind of problem. So we appreciate your understanding about that.
So are the ads more expensive for this one since this is only airing once?
Well, anyway, you are running for Oshkosh Common Council. This is not your first venture into politics, though. You served on the county board for a while. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about who Mark Nielsen is, what you've done politically, and why you're seeking this position?
Thank you, Cheryl. First off, if I lose my voice, I apologize. I'm fighting a cold. Myself, I'm born and raised in Oshkosh. As Cheryl said, this is not my first time running for office. I have served 5 years on Winnebago County. First time I ran, I lost by 14 votes, so I have lost close elections. Second time I ran, I did win. Served 5 years on the county board, so I do have experience in how government works, interaction, how slow it can move, and also the committee structure. Other information, married, have 2 children. Work for a pharmaceutical company, and a little bit of why I'm running is that I was asked by a lot of different individuals this fall if I would throw my hat into the race, because I have run for county board, thought about it and said I would get back to them, and had a long discussion with my wife. And I state this, and if you've ever run, and Cheryl, you have, I mean, when you run, you have to put 100% into it. And so it's not fair if I don't talk to my family and get their support. And I did, and we felt, my wife and I, that really we want to make the city of Oshkosh a better place for our 2 daughters. And that's really why I've gotten involved, is I remember growing up the city back in the 80s, which doesn't seem that long ago, but for some it's ancient, and where we were heading. And I think we've slowed down or become stagnant. And I'd like to make it a little bit better place. I know, though, that if I am elected and get on, any changes I make, it's going to take a couple of years for those changes to take effect. What those changes are, you know, it's hard to say. I don't have a glass ball in front of me looking at, but it's, you know, it's how you can make a change is by getting involved. And the only way you can make change is throw your hat in, try it, and as we say, the store is only open that one day, and I'm selling myself. And if the shoppers don't show up, I don't win, but I made the attempt, and that's why I'm getting involved, is to try and make it a better place.
Sure. Well, we applaud your efforts. Yep. You mentioned that you think the city's become stagnant. And yet we hear about, you know, millions of dollars just last year alone being added to the tax roll and so forth. How do you think it's become stagnant?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that word back, because that is a kind of a harsh or a pin-to word. And when I say stagnant, I travel a lot for the Marine Corps, and I travel a lot for my job. And I go to other communities throughout, I've been throughout the world and seen what they've done. And when I say stagnant, I mean we're not moving forward as quickly as some of those other more progressive communities. And that's, maybe it's too harsh of a word, but let's put it out there and say that we'd like to move forward a little bit quicker. How long did it take us for Highway 4121 to take effect? Yes, when you get government involved, things do slow down, and that's where we need to make it more advantageous for businesses to come to the community, much more friendly, put out the red carpet. I guess that's why, where I say that. Stagnant's too hard, but sometimes we have to use harsh words.
Okay. All right, well, here's kind of a little harsh question.
Just go right ahead.
You, and I know a lot of people are tired of hearing this man's name, but it wouldn't be a fair interview if we didn't ask it. You played a rather significant role in Joe Paulus's re-election campaign. You were his campaign treasurer, if I recall correctly. You were certainly not the only person who was hoodwinked by this man. He fooled an awful lot of people. Do you think that the role that you played in his campaign will in any way negatively impact your campaign for city council, or do you think that that's pretty much a dead issue and you shouldn't be guilty by association?
Well, there's a lot of questions in there. But first of all, I'm glad you did bring that up, because let's just get it on the table.
That was in 2002?
2002,
Okay.
I was his,
Okay.
I did the campaign, or did the treasurer work. Prior to that, I helped Joe get elected and reelected. And I've worked on campaigns, not only his, but other campaigns. And when you talk about someone that you think you know, and you ask him, and like Dan, I'd look right at you and I ask you a question, he says right back to me that, no, I didn't do that. At that time, how can I second guess him? I have never been lied to from him, have never, had any reason to have doubt. As a Monday morning quarterback, or looking back on it, sure, I should have guessed it, but I had no reason to. So was I sold the kitchen sink or hoodwinked? Yes. But it's, your question then goes into, will it have an effect? The voters out there have to decide. Have we talked about them enough? From my opinion, for talking, because I do sales and I'm out there in the community, most people want to put it behind us. He did plead guilty. He has been sentenced. He's serving it. And let's move on. I know that the media likes to talk about it to sell ads and put them on the front page. But I would hope that in a growing process, we've learned from it. Let's move forward and use it as an example in the future.
Okay, good enough.
I want to ask you about your service in Iraq. When and where did you serve, and what were your duties?
Okay. 2003, I served 7 months in country in Iraq. I was with 6th Engineer Support Battalion of the 1st MAF, which is Marine MAF, which is the Marine Expeditionary Force. We were then transferred from 6th ESB to 7th ESB. And I won't go more in depth into that. But where I served is, we first were moved into Kuwait, and we were at Camp Coyote, and we supported 1st Marine Division and 5th Corps of the Army as we moved up into Baghdad. And we came up on Aspen, which is, they named all the roads by certain communities, or certain cities in Colorado. We came up on Aspen. We came up the first road, and I served in El Hila, Diwania, Numanaya, communities that don't exist on the map, where we set up bases that were set up, which was Pigpen, Wrigley Field, which was the middle of a road, was an air base. We were there overnight. So on a map, if you look at it, we came in, we helped with the breach, which was the breach on the west, broke through there, came right up supporting the 1st Marine Division and 5th Corps, and one day got in front of the 1st Marine Division's forward, and got between them and the enemy, and quickly realized we were too far forward and had to turn around and come back. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for serving. My follow-up question is, Americans all over this country, including Congress, are asking for advisory votes on where we should go in the future. And there was a measure introduced last year in the Common Council, I think by Councilman Estner, to put an advisory vote on the November ballot calling for an immediate withdrawal of National Guard and referendum, or Army reservist. And I'm just wondering, if you're elected to the council, whether you think national issues, particularly one as important as that, citizens of the city should have a right, either through petition or vote of the council, to express their views on something as important as this.
Talking in regards to the military, it's dear to the heart. So when you ask specifically on that, referendum on a national issue at a local level, I would state no.
Okay.
I believe that there are other ways that, and let's use you and I, Dan. I mean, if you are on one path and I'm on a separate path, you have other avenues or other ramifications you can take, such as you can contact your congressman, you can write to your congressman, write to your senator. There are other ways of dealing with it than bringing it to at the local level. If we look at fiscally, what is that? What can we do at the local level to change that? By passing a referendum is a feel-good process because we don't have that much impact on saying we should bring home all the National Guardsmen. Okay, we have no control over that at the local level, so it feels good that we passed that. But to me, that used up a lot of time and resources by doing that. And there's other ways that you can do that, that even though I may disagree with, and there may be something else that you can do that would be much more worth your time, your effort, and our taxpayers' money.
Okay. You could vote no on the. I mean, it's not
Correct.
like the resolution
No,
implies.
if
you have
another
to vote
person
for
had brought
Yeah.
it up, I'm not going to. I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah.
They have the right to bring something forward. Would I say this should be dealt on a federal level? That would be my response. But if someone wants to bring it forward, they have the right to do that. I'm not going to stop them from doing that.
Okay. Mark, downtown redevelopment is still an issue that we're hearing an awful lot about. And what, in your opinion, needs to be done down there to, promote the downtown as a whole, and with it the businesses that either are there or who in the future may choose to locate there?
There's a lot of questions in there in regards to downtown. Have we done enough? No, we have not. Is there a lot we can do? Sure, we could do, per se, much more advertising. The hard part we have is that we don't have a local private television station. We have two public, Channel 2 and Channel 10, which do a very good job, but they're selling the ads, promoting the downtown, really getting on a local aspect, and I think that hurts us not only on the downtown, but our university getting the word out more about programs, sporting events. But coming back to the downtown, there's the landscape of the Main Street. You can bring all the stores down there, but we need to beautify the main approach. When I look at things, when I look at things as you're coming in, it's perception of people, perception of what they see downtown. There are a lot of good stores, there are a lot of great things happening down there, but we need to tweak a few things here and there. We need to help promote it a little bit better. And with that, in business, you have the multiplier effect, that once you start having a few things here and a few things there, it starts to bring more people, more involvement, and that will bring the awareness down, much more downtown.
Okay. Promoting it, just kind of following up on that, is that something that you think the city should be doing? Should we be creating maybe our own agency of sorts to promote it? Should we still continue relying on the Oshkosh Area Economic Development Corp and maybe put a little bit more pressure on them to have them come to the council more? They were there the other night, incidentally, and they've said that they will continue coming back. But is it something that we should, have privatized, or is it something that if we want to really get somewhere with the downtown.
Get a grasp around it?
Yeah, get
Yeah.
our arms around it.
No,
Should we
that's-
do it ourselves?
And one of the things I say is pride in our community, and I think that's where we need a main cheerleader, per se. Someone out there really leading the cheer of and selling the community. To have more accountability, yes. Should we have the city form their own organization, per se? No. By having Rob Clayman's group, that is very good, but hold his feet to the fire then. And that's the job to do, is to hold his feet so that he's out there. I'm in sales. I'm held accountable. There's a certain level I have to hit, and if I'm not hitting it, I get my review. So bring them back more often.
Okay.
Don't put another layer in there. Keep it streamlined between that and have them out there. I don't want to see we're learning along the way as we're doing it. If we're doing it, let's get people that know what they're doing, hold their feet to the fire, try different things that work in other communities. There's nothing wrong with, copying someone else, what has worked in other communities. If they've tried it, they've gone through a lot of the bumps along the road that then we don't have to.
Okay, good.
Kind of a follow-up on that. I want to talk about the airport. They're currently advertising for a new manager of Whitman Airport. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you served as chair of the county airport committee.
The chairman of the aviation committee.
Okay. You should have some expertise on this. What's the future that fits your not being stagnant thing that we could do on the airport that we're not doing?
I'm glad you brought that up in regards to the airport, which has been, and I apologize to any people out there who are redheaded, but the term we use in the military always is the redheaded stepchild. It's the one of the county that they like to kick around, they always point to. In reality, the airport itself brings, when I left as chairman, was bringing in $750,000 in tax revenue to the city of Oshkosh. Anytime a building goes up out there, the first one who has their hand out to collect tax revenue is the city. Okay, the amount of jobs that are out there have continued to increase, and we talk about it. It can take 3, 4, 5 years. Things that I help to do out there in regards to making everyone get a business plan, putting forth rules and regulations and minimum standards, have really allowed the group the airport to come together. We just had a bill that was passed in Madison that I brought to State Senator Ressler and also former Representative Underheim, which is an airport development zone, which allows airports in the state to apply to get taxes towards credits towards businesses that are at airports. Presently, we probably have 10 to 15 businesses that are looking at the airport. I won't go into it because I'm held to secrecy or that I will not discuss. I'm still a advisor out there, non-paid, so I don't have any.
Do you fly?
No, I do not.
Okay.
But with my involvement with the Marine Corps, I've been involved with aviation for quite some time. There is the amount of jobs that are provided out there and the revenue that is brought into this community at the airport has continued to expand over the years. But people feel if there's not a commercial airline, it's a dead airport. I would disagree in regards to what Basler has out there, what Sonics has out there, what Orion has out there, what the EAA brings in, and that $750,000 doesn't even include the tax revenue which is brought in during the 1 week of the fly-in. So there's a lot that happens out there, but it's very easy to point to and always say, oh, what if we were to sell that off? I think you would see where it would not be beneficial to us. And I talked earlier about the multiplying effect. That is an area that in the future, where is aviation going? Aviation is going into the small jets and into taxi service. So you have where the smaller jets, you would get on the computer, you type in, I want to fly from Oshkosh to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Someone who's flying a small jet will say, oh, I can do that because I'm flying from Grand Rapids, Michigan to San Diego. We'll come along, pick you up, you'll be in the jet with another person, he'll drop you off and then go over and go to the other one. So that's where aviation is going. It's going to the small jets, it's going to the smaller kit planes. It's not the very large ones that you see out there. I mean, do you like standing in line when you go to the airport and waiting?
Not the JetBlue airline that was
No.
there for what, 10 or 12 hours yesterday.
And,
No.
and are you wealthy enough to rent a NetJet or a partial or own your own jet?
No, Cheryl is, I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
thank
So,
you.
for the average person, you're going to
Yeah.
be using what is called
Yeah.
taxi jet service. Okay, that's where it's going.
All
So
right.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no,
but
I think it's a unique experience he has, and I sense if you're elected that we'll hear more talk about the airport.
I really think that one of the areas that the community, for how much tax revenue it brings in, that we have just pushed it off to the side and not really dealt with it. And I think it can be very advantageous to the community.
Okay. Focusing here on City Hall, a lot of people are saying that there's just not very much accountability from City Hall. Do you think that there is or is not enough accountability with respect to not just our city manager, but department heads? And if there's not, what do we need to do to hold their feet to the fire?
As an outsider, not someone who's involved with as one of the seven, talking to the general public out there, they feel there's a disconnect. That may just be a small communication problem, but I'm sure you could bring up a lot of different examples over the last year in regards to things that were popped upon or popped out to the community that we had no idea about, or last minute, and or departments that may be doing somewhat their own agenda than what the general public had known about. So I think I use the term disconnect. Then a rogue group or a group not bringing them under more scrutiny. My experience with the county board, and I was corrected by the council over there many times, it's not our job to control the different department heads. And when I was over there, it was the same thing. Our job was to work with those department heads. Here, it's our job to work with and tell the city manager what to do. He then works and tells what the different department heads to do. So if there's something that a department head is doing that you feel incorrect, talk with the city manager. If he doesn't deal with it, then bring it to the other six. Bring it forward, deal with it, and then let's move on. Let's not just get wrapped around the axle on things, but let's be a little bit more progressive in moving the city forward.
Okay. It's a difficult thing, as I'm sure you know, because the council is supposed to be giving marching orders to the city manager, and yet he's the full-time, very well-paid employee. They are part-time employees who are making, when all is said and done, less than minimum wage, and that's on a good day, I think. So who should really be steering the ship?
The seven should give guidance to the city manager. Okay. This is where the citizens elected us seven. Excuse me. This is where they would like it to go. This is what they've talked about. And then those seven direct the city manager. The city manager should be the person that I said earlier, the cheerleader, the person out there really selling the community. He's working not just to make 4 happy. He should be trying to make all 7 happy, which is hard to do, in any family, try and make everyone happy at one time. But you try to, get that consensus, get as many as possible, move forward. If there's a disconnect there, we need to correct that.
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I just wanted to follow up on one thing, and I had this written down somewhere, and amongst my sheets here, I don't see it. But
Is this something I wrote? No.
no, it's something you said, though.
All right.
And you just kind of touched on it again just now, talking about pleasing 4 out of the 7. And that is true. But in this particular comment, and I don't know if it was in the newspaper, I don't recall where I saw it, but you referenced about having open discussion or open debate about the form of government. Are you happy with this form of government, or is it your opinion based on the comments that you made that maybe we need to look at a mayoral aldermanic form of government?
Well, let me hit on that first, that I have a Bachelor's of Science in Political Science, and I have a minor in Public Administration. So I've dabbled a little in it, per se. This form of government can work and does work, and mayor alderman can work and does work also. The one that this city has is mayor alderman. Good or bad, that's what we have to deal with. If the citizens at large disagree with what we have, then they should speak their word. You have the ability to do your show, to get it out there, to change it if per se. I think that's where there's a disconnect communication in regards to the community does not exactly know what is going on. They voiced that. So there's some distrust. There's some anxiety of exactly what's going on with the different departments. And that there's question now out there, is this the best form? At the debate, I even said back to Alex Hummel, I said, even one of your bosses wrote an article on it in regards to the disconnect that's happening between them. I think it can be a good form, and that's the one we have. So that's the one I will say we're with. If the citizens vote that maybe we should have change, that we are a form of government, and that's, we'll work with what we have.
Okay.
A couple of lightning round questions. Does the city need a standing budget committee?
I think no, not a standing budget committee.
Okay.
Do we need to look at, and that's just from my own experience with others.
Sure.
I think we need to look at more long range, long term. But when I say long term, at 5 years, because in government, 5 years is a lifetime. Things change so much and it moves slow, but we need to look at budget a little differently than the way we are.
Secondhand smoking, is it a serious public health issue in Oshkosh? And what should be done about it?
I'm not with the Department of Health, so that's an issue in regards to right now. It's at the state level that the governor wants to make it a state issue, and we'll see where it goes from there.
But don't we currently have a city ordinance that's up for renewal? Or one that was circulated by petition? We currently have a smoking.
We currently have a smoking ban.
Are you comfortable with that?
That's what is on the books, and that's what we have to live with.
Okay. Okay.
Did you have another one?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
All right, go for it.
Citizen comments, are they good or bad at the end of each council meeting?
They can be good and they can be bad. I look at them the same way as some congressmen at the end of,
Okay.
that will just go on. It's almost maybe we should have a center square where they can come out on Saturdays and talk their mind. But I think they should deal specifically what's on the agenda.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
One of the goals of the City Council, of course, is to establish goals, or one of the jobs, rather, of the City Council is to establish goals for the city manager. What kinds of goals would you like to see for the city manager if you were on the council?
That's a great question. And whatever goals they put forward, we haven't been able to look at. But myself,
We don't know what they are.
I know, but I've done a lot of reviews, so it's one that it's good that it's held behind because in regards to litigation and laws. But goals that we should have is let's move the community forward. Let's build the city so we have more tax revenue coming in. And let's set a bar and make sure that he reaches that and goes above that, not just comes up to it. Let us set the bar for him as the 7. Not
Okay.
him set the bar. Let us set the bar. In regards to maybe the bar is way up there, and nothing against Dick, but does he reach it right now?
Okay.
Maybe we should look, beyond there.
Okay. Very quickly, why don't you look into camera 3 and tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, the 20th of February.
Ladies and gentlemen, I come before you tonight and ask that you vote for me on February 20th. From my experience as a prior elected official, my experience as a member of the Armed Forces of 21 years of leading individuals, and also my experience in financial responsibilities on the board, I believe that I would be a good individual representing you. So please vote for me on February 20th.
All right, very good. We're going to take a real short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Kent Monte. We'll be right back.
Nice meeting you.
By foot.
Run across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, And that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz, Dan Rylance, and now we are very pleased to welcome Kent Monte to the show. This is Kent's second time running for City Council. He ran last year unsuccessfully, but he's thrown his hat back in the ring, and so congratulations for getting on the ballot, and thank you for running. And I appreciate you coming over here tonight, especially because you just came from another engagement prior to this, another
Yes, I
campaign
did.
thing. So we appreciate your kind of juggling things this evening on your calendar. I think people probably know about you, but for maybe newcomers to the city or people who have forgotten, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're seeking a seat on the Oshkosh Common Council?
Well, I've lived here in Oshkosh for between 4 and 5 years. I work for the Department of Defense. I'm a quality assurance representative. I'm stationed at Oshkosh Truck. I oversee billions of dollars of contracts every year and ensure quality assurance on all the military product going overseas to our troops that are serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've been studying city government for probably 2 years now, and just think that I can contribute.
Okay. As a candidate for council, what do you think of the ideas, few as we really know right now, about the development along the river? And we're not talking about 5 rivers anymore.
No.
We'll talk about that. But we're talking about the new development being proposed by Access and in the Tommy Thompson Group. What do you think based on what you've seen so far?
I attended the first meeting of Access, and they had a very good presentation. They had a lot of ideas that I think will work well on the riverfront. Of course, that was all conceptual. They didn't have any businesses slated or locked in at that point. They have yet to do that. I believe their deadline is May 1st to come back to the council and show the council exactly what they're, what they've got locked in, what they're planning for the next step. But so far, I like what they've got proposed. I like their ideas.
Okay. Well, you were certainly opposed to 5 Rivers. Not so much the project itself, but the way it was being, I think, presented to the community, the input that the community was being asked to put into the project, and that kind of thing. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. I wasn't opposed to 5 Rivers. I was opposed to the dollar signs attached to it, and the fact that the public really didn't know a whole lot about it. I mean, what little I knew about it, I had to call Tom Doig and ask him myself. A lot of the stuff was done behind closed doors and in secret and private, and I don't think that's any way to ask the taxpayers to pay for a multi-million-dollar addition to the city.
Well, that leads me into my next question. And Mr. Doig has told me that he may very well be bringing something back before this city at some point down the road. His words, in fact, were, "It's not dead." I don't know exactly what that means, but if you were on the council, Kent, and Mr. Doig were to bring back something in some shape, form, or fashion to the city, Knowing how this whole thing with Five Rivers was handled, how would you approach such a proposal from him in the future?
I'd want to see everything up front. I want to see exactly what he's asking for, dollar amounts, what his plans are. You know, I would imagine with the Access Group, it'll be a smaller rendition of Five Rivers. It wouldn't be the $60 million project that he first proposed. And I would expect him to, present it to the public in workshops or, town hall meetings and whatnot. Show the public what he's wanting to do and the money he's asking for.
Okay.
Prove it.
If anyone has attended more council meetings in the last year or two than you, I don't know who it is. So I want you to share your heavy attendance at these meetings, and ask you to identify two city practices that have impressed you, and two perhaps that need to be changed or eliminated.
Oh boy, 2 and 2, huh?
You can go 1 and 1. It doesn't matter.
One of the things that you see behind the scenes is there's a lot of stuff that goes on off camera. I mean, people shuffling around in the gallery, you don't see that very often. There's also a bit of, I don't want to call it disrespect, but I don't know that the city staff really treats the council like they're their boss. They're asked questions that they don't necessarily give straight answers to. And when the council members are on camera, they're not, I don't know if they just accept the answers as given, or they're just not willing to, go the extra mile to get the answers that they're looking for.
Okay. So we want them on camera at all times.
Well, not necessarily, but I think the council's got to be willing to ensure that their questions that they're asking are actually being answered.
Okay.
I mean, the city expects it,
Okay.
and the council members should get it.
Okay. I sense that might be one of the answers to the negative part. What makes you feel good after going to? I mean, what's something that impresses you that's really a good procedure that takes place at these council meetings?
They do work together.
Okay.
I mean, they do spend a lot of time when an issue is brought up that isn't necessarily on the agenda. They do discuss it and keep an open mind and want to bring it back at future meetings and whatnot. They are pretty cohesive in that respect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have another one?
Sure. This is a long time ago, and I'm older than you are, so this may not do very well. When Dwight Eisenhower left office in 1961, he warned the nation of his concerns about the military-industrial complex. Local governments, local cities receiving a lot of money from the Pentagon and from the national government. And I'm wondering if you think Oshkosh, you're a control person for the Pentagon, a little concerned that Oshkosh is being trapped into this military-industrial complex?
Not really. A lot of what we're seeing now in buildup is probably a result of the war. But initially, those contracts were already in place. These are multi-year contracts that have been around for a long time. It's not like Oshkosh Truck just started building military trucks yesterday. They've been building these trucks since the 70s or 80s, and a lot of the trucks that they were building in the 80s are now coming back for remanufacturing now. So I don't know that necessarily Oshkosh is really getting tied up in the defense budget too much. I think that the business will still remain long after the war is over.
How much money does the Pentagon put in? What's in the 2007 budget?
I have no idea.
Okay. What was in 2006?
I don't know that either.
Okay.
It's in the billions, hundreds of billions, I would imagine.
But I mean specifically to Oshkosh and Oshkosh. What are the Pentagon contracts with Oshkosh Truck?
I can't say right off the top of my head, because there's several different contracts for many different things.
Okay.
We're talking 6 different vehicle models or more, spare parts, and then armor and stuff like that. It's very extensive. There are a lot of contracts. Okay. So to pin a dollar amount, I can't.
But clearly a huge influx of money into this community.
Yes, okay. But it has always been that way. Okay. It's not just because of the Iraq or Afghanistan. That's been there for a long time.
Okay. One of the things that has been written on blogs, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on blogs, but one of the things that you actually wrote on a blog, Kent, was that when you were on the show last year, you thought that you were treated rather hostilely. And, you know, I don't think that we've ever treated guests hostilely. We've asked tough questions, some that maybe people don't really appreciate. But I don't think we've ever really been rude or hostile to someone. And the reason I bring this up is because there have been other people who have written on blogs saying that, well, if you disagree with Kent or you challenge him on something, he becomes angry, he becomes defensive. Now, you may not characterize it that way, but obviously some of these folks do. And they will be your employer if you're elected. So if Kent Monte were to get elected to the council, what would you do, Kent, to assure voters, and even if they're not voters, just taxpayers, that if they disagree with you on something or if they come to you with something, A, their concern's going to be taken seriously, and B, they're not going to be met with anger or defensiveness or whatever these folks may feel that you portray?
I always like to go into things with an open mind. My opinion is not the end-all be-all. You know, I've been known to be wrong in the past, as
we don't want to go there.
Yeah, we don't want to go there. But I have been wrong, and you know, I like to hear people's opinion. If elected, I'm there to serve. I'm there to represent the taxpayers. If the taxpayers call me or email me or send me a letter or stop me in the grocery store, which has happened in the past, I will listen to them. I will take their concerns very seriously, and I have no problem bringing their concerns into the council chambers and letting the rest of the council members know. The taxpayers are the boss.
Okay. Let's talk about accountability coming from City Hall. I know that you are firmly staunch in your belief that there's not enough accountability being, conducted here at City Hall. Where do you feel the fault for that lies? Does that lie with the City Council because they're not holding Mr. Wolling's feet to the fire? Does that come from Mr. Wolling because he's not holding his department head's feet to the fire? Is it a combination of both? And what can be done differently?
I think it's all the above. I think that it's a combination where the council isn't holding the city manager to task, and the city manager may not be holding his department heads to task. There's a lot that can be done. Goal setting is one. You can counsel the city manager to ensure that he is going to do his job. And if he's not doing his job, maybe we need to find somebody that will do that job. I'm not saying fire Dick Walling by any stretch, but we need to make sure he's doing his job appropriately and earning his salary.
Okay. Are there other things that we should be doing to get this train back on track?
Well, it's all a matter of perspective. Do I think the train's off the tracks? Yes. How hard it's going to be to get back on the tracks, I guess that'll take place in April if a new council's seated. If the city feels that they're happy with the way things are going right now, then the incumbents will be reelected and the council will not change. If the city feels it's time for some change, then we'll see some new blood on the council and then things will change.
Okay. One more?
Sure. No, go ahead. It's your show.
No. You're sharing this stage with me here. Some council members are pushing for a city hall type feasibility study, productivity study, assessment, whatever you want to call it. It's been called a number of different things. There are two different amounts. There's a smaller scale one, and then there's a larger one that I believe is going to cost, I think they've estimated it at like 120, 130.
140, I think, is what
it's upwards of 100,000. You've been supportive of that. You've been very much on the record saying you're in support of that. And you believe in lean principles. Now, for those who don't know, Lean Six Sigma principles are really just a set of processes that They're designed and implemented primarily for making sure that you've got the right things in the right place at the right time to get things done as efficiently as possible. And that's a good thing. Business does it all the time. Why do you feel that we are not as efficient and lean as we can be in Oshkosh? And with that, I want to bring one other thing that you've written. You've said that the potential exists that the study could save 5 to 10 times the amount that it's going to cost in just a few years, and that's possibly saving anywhere from $600,000 to about $1 million or more dollars. That's an awful lot of money. What are you basing those figures on?
It's just a guess.
Okay.
That's why I said potentially. Do I know everything? No. But it has been known in the past when large corporations, which one can argue that City of Oshkosh is a large entity, when they take these studies, they do go out, they get independent studies, they have these auditors come in and look at their processes, streamline their processes. It's all about efficiency, accuracy, precision, and speed. You wanna get things done as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. Is the city doing it? I don't know. Without a productivity study, we'll never know. I think it's money well spent for a couple of reasons. One, it could save the city hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. Or it could say we're running as efficient as possible, but we need more. Okay? That way, when, like last summer, when they put a referendum on the ballot asking for a raise in the levy beyond the levy limits, they didn't have anything to justify it. There was no good reason to raise the levy that much. But after a productivity study, if they come back saying, well, we need 50 more employees spread out through 5 different departments, well, now we've got something on paper that says we need this. Now we can take it to the taxpayers, and maybe then there will be a different outlook on that referendum.
Okay, and that's fair. One of your challengers, though, Tony Palmieri, is saying that it comes down to a level of distrust. And if you don't trust your department heads, if you don't trust your city manager, get rid of them. There's no need to spend $100 and some thousand.
Yeah, and I disagree with that. It's not a matter of distrust. It's a matter of maybe they're not as educated on lean principles as most are. Do the department heads attend lean training? Are they Six Sigma qualified? Do they, have they done any of the lean principles, the 5 S's, and so on? We don't, if they haven't done that, we don't know how efficient we really are.
Okay. But just very quickly, are you comfortable with just one bid being submitted?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
So you would want more?
Yes.
Okay.
Follow-up question on the study. I'm a cynic of studies. I spent 10 years in state government in North Dakota in the 70s, and I can tell you for every 10 studies we contracted, 9 went on the shelf and were never adhered to. You've already said earlier that the issues is communication between the council and the city manager and his department heads. No study is going to change that. That's an issue of personalities and leadership, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's nothing magic, no silver bullet in a study if the people that are in charge aren't going to implement the study.
That's true, but and then it comes on the council to ensure that the study is acted on. It's not a matter of, if the city manager wants to put it on a shelf, well, then it's up to the council to act on that. If the council wants the study acted on, it's up to them to make sure it's acted on and not shelved.
Okay.
You're right. A study, spending $100,000+ on a study that's just going to go on a shelf is an absolute waste of money. If we're going to do a study, we need to do it right, and we need to take the information and use it.
Okay.
But here's the other problem and I'm looking at this from both sides, Kent. Here's the other problem that I see with doing the study. It's not going to, from what I understand, get into the little nitty-gritty things, such as, you've suggested that the purchasing departments sell police cars differently. That maybe we might be able to make a little bit more money on the sale of these police cars. But they're not going to look at little things like that. That's what I understand anyway. So how can we make this study beneficial to us if we're not going to be looking at all these little tiny things that can add up to potentially big savings?
Well, sometimes it's a matter of taking the big stuff, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, before you go after the little stuff. I used the police cars as an example. I had an opportunity to meet with the gentleman that auctioned that police car on eBay, and I believe the purchasing department pays 8% commission to the auction house down in Fond du Lac to auction it off. Now, that's a local auction, so anybody who wants to purchase that police car is just going to be from this region. They're not going to be traveling from across the country to just buy our police cars. So that limits our market. The gentleman that I talked to would be willing to contract with the city. He'd go to to the police department, pick up the squad cars, take them, clean them up, do whatever it takes, put them on eBay for 10%. And that would, just in this one police car alone, would have realized about $1,500 more profit for the city.
So he would charge us 10% as opposed to the 8% the city's paying an auctioneer.
Correct, but in the same token, he's also
That bites into our savings too.
but he's also
or our profit.
But not necessarily, because he's also coming to City Hall or the police department picking up the vehicle, whereas we're sending somebody down with the vehicle to Fond du Lac to sell it. The auction house isn't coming to get the cars and bring them down there. We're actually sending staff down there and taking their time to do it. So there is money being spent there too in logistics.
Okay.
So.
But here again, those are small things that this study isn't going to be looking at. So how do we find these small things that add up if the study isn't going to be looking at
Part of
those?
it's about education. While the auditors are doing the study, they're going to have the department heads or middle management with them, and the middle management and the department heads can learn from these auditors as they're doing the audit, and then they can pass that on down to the smaller stuff down the road.
I have some quick lightning rod questions here.
Uh-oh.
Secondhand smoking. Is it a serious health problem in Oshkosh, and should we keep the status quo, be more aggressive? What's your views on that as a public health issue?
Well, secondhand smoke, you'll get a lot of those in the bars. I mean, that's long been known that bars are smoky places. It's one of those things where I go to bars and I expect to come home smelling like an ashtray. That is kind of the norm. But
so you want to extend the ordinance to bars then? Is that what
No, I don't.
No, okay.
I know that the governor is looking at a statewide smoking ban that may exempt taverns, and that's a whole different issue.
Okay.
What do you see as a tavern? That's a big question. But I think it's a health concern. I think it's something that needs to be looked at. But in the same token, it's up to the individual whether they want to subject themselves to that. The customers. Like I said, if I go to bars, I expect to be in a smoking environment. So.
Okay. Does the city need a standing budget committee?
Yes.
Why?
Because the budget. Okay, take this last year as a good example. Late summer, we were looking at the sky is falling again. Emergency services being cut, 9 firefighters and a handful, and a handful of police officers. I went up there and I called it nothing short of extortion. And it's always been that way. It seems like it's that way every year, where the budget's tight, we're going to have to lay off all these people, and it's always emergency services that are cut first. Now, granted, they are the largest employment in the city, so they would be looked at first, but in the same token, is it really necessary? With a budget committee, you have an opportunity to keep an eye on the budget throughout the year, and come the end of the summer, it's not as big of a task all at once.
Or is erroneous?
What do you mean?
Well, the sky was going to fall in on and clearly the sky didn't fall in.
And they didn't have any more money than what they would have to begin with, and that was kind of it makes you wonder.
It does.
Why? But what, like you said, and also another thing that's been brought up is, why don't we have a citizens advisory committee anymore? That would be helpful. There are so many different things that don't cost any money that we could do to help the budget process along.
Would you continue citizen comments at the end of the council meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. God, we're almost out of time here, but I want to ask you
That
one
was quick.
question. Yeah, it was for us too. Want to ask you one question before we have you kind of wrap things up for us. About 2 weeks ago, as we're taping this, there was a little media report, and it involved Meredith Shireman's campaign, her nomination papers.
Yes.
You had been given information by Councilman Paul Esslinger and former Mayor Melanie Bleckel that some of her signatures were not legal signatures. They were invalid. They had been disqualified or discounted, and as a result of that, she ended up with, I think, 201 signatures, still enough to be legally on the ballot.
Yes.
They gave that information to you, and you in turn took that to the local radio station. Wasn't that kind of a cheap shot against her? What was your motivation in doing that?
My motivation was not necessarily against Meredith. There were a couple. There was a twofold reason. Okay, one, she's not a rookie politician. She's an elected member of our council. She's been through this before. She's got a campaign committee. She should know the rules. One of the nomination papers that was given to me was one where she self-nominated. Is where she nominated herself on the first line. And she circulated that petition and signed the bottom and dated it. The date on the bottom was before 9 of the signatures on that page of the 10. The only one that was dated was hers.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes into attention to detail. I mean, she should know the rules, she should know the laws. Now, granted, when she turned that petition in at the city clerk's office, that should have been caught, and it was a correctable error. She could have corrected that on the spot, and all 10 of those signatures could have been valid. And it wasn't a matter of getting the signatures thrown out. It was a matter of showing it's more towards accountability and accuracy. If you're going to do it for one candidate, I spent half hour, almost 45 minutes having my papers looked at, and they had me correct mistakes like that. Okay. Why aren't they doing that for all the candidates? You know, that's the question I have. And how many other errors are being made on a daily basis that, you know,
So you're suggesting the
found.
city clerk spent time on your petitions but did not spend time on Shireman's? Or?
I don't know that they didn't spend
Okay.
time on hers, but
Okay.
they obviously missed.
Okay.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. So why don't you just look into camera 3 at Kent and tell folks why they should vote for you tomorrow as they're watching this.
Yes. A vote for Kent Monte is a vote for leadership, accountability, and responsibility for Oshkosh. I will bring your voice to the council. I'm always available. I can be reached via email, via my blog site, or by telephone at any time. So all I ask is that I get your vote on February 20th and, God willing, on April 3rd. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, and thanks for being here.
Thanks.
And Dan, thank you. And as always, thanks to you for letting us in your homes for the last hour. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.
Thanks.
Yep.